AI Mentors is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting and networking needs. Our podcast, AI Mentors, hosted by Mark Kelly, brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI Mentors cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career.
Welcome to episode 2 of AI Mentors. I'm your host, Mark Kelly. Our guest today is James Aylward. James is the SVP and Head of Product at Pluralsight. In this episode, James will share why he's passionate about education and personalised learning, the importance of understanding customer needs, starting small, iterating and building your case in order to influence business decision makers, and also advice to building data science teams and how AI will transform the customer journey. You're listening to the AI Mentors podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kelly. Our guest today is James Aylward. Hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Without further ado, let's get on with the show. So James, tell us a little bit about your background and how you actually became SVP and Head of Data Product at Pluralsight.
Yeah, sure. So I've had a lot of experience with data-driven product experiences in the past, and I'm a product guy originally, and I think it's actually pretty healthy to come into the data science world from a different angle or a different domain than just pure data science. So I had a lot of background with different innovation programs. My first product was an innovation program at Staples in North America, rolling that out to sort of 90,000 associates and getting ideas back from everybody across the company. And that was my first taste of product. So there was a ton of different data points in that. It was a very data-driven organization to the point where we probably were too blinded from the data that we didn't listen to the voice of the customer all the time. And we did some very clever things, but we also did some things that, like I ran the business card line for a little bit, and the substrate on our free business card was just really, really bad. And I love this different. We made a huge amount of, difference in the world there. And it was an enormous experience growing that company out. But, our core product, our free business card, was like just an atrocious substrate, and people wouldn't come back. And you're like, why are they coming back? The data says they're not coming back. Well, you go out and talk to them, and like, oh wow, look, it just doesn't work. And we went out there, we did all the hard things, we did the marketing, we got them in, we sent them the business cards. Let's just make the substrate a little bit better. So you do the math, and look, it was about $1 million upgrade to upgrade them to our next best substrate. And then the repeat rate just had to rise by it was just a small little margin to break even. So we did that, and lo and behold, it did much better than we thought. And then we had to have a review of why we didn't make that decision earlier. It was just because we were so data orientated and so numbers based that we hadn't listened to the voice of the customer. So we needed to put those two together.
And tell us a little bit about how you got into Pluralsight. And for people that don't actually know what Pluralsight is, tell us about what you guys do and some of the challenges you overcome.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I was looking at how Fidelity came up the learning curve, and looking at the various opportunities out there for technology learning generally. And I was amazed by Pluralsight's technology. It's got an enormous catalog of content. There's 7,000 different courses anybody can do at Pluralsight. And what's really interesting to me as a technologist or as a product guy who's come into data science is it's a true opportunity for machine learning AI techniques. So what we're trying to do is match the individual needs of a learner, which can be myriad and totally bespoke to that individual coming in, depending on their skill level, where they are, what company they're at, where they are, their current, experience of whether they're trying to make a career transition or they're trying to learn something brand new out of school. There's so many different use cases for a different learner. And then how do you match the exact right content to that learner? And then beyond that, it's like we have so much content out there, but we've always got content that needs to be refreshed, or there's new technologies that need to be covered or covered in a different way for a different type. So how do we get the right author to make the right content at the right time and incentivize them in the right way?
You're trying to actually position yourself as that end user and trying to think, how can you actually give them the right information at the right time on their journey at that point?
So imagine if you had a teacher who knew everything about you and had access to almost an entire perfect set of educational content, and just had to match that, your need for that content. Was able to do that instantly on a global level. That's what we're talking about with the opportunity for artificial intelligence at Pluralsight. And that's what I wanted. I wanted a company where AI really makes sense. So we're not just doing it because it's cool. We're doing it because, there's an absolute use case for it.
So you're not just trying to find a problem.
Exactly. And then, then I was talking further with Nate Walkinshaw, who's the Chief Experience Officer, and he was talking about the process that they use here at Pluralsight. I just love it. It's continuous discovery of customer needs. So we're talking to customers. Increasingly, we're going to be using more and more data analysis and data techniques to also understand the voice of the customer as revealed through data. But then we launch continuously too. It's continuous delivery. So I have 6 or 7 small teams in my organization that just launch to production every day.
So James, tell us a little bit about that in terms of the team dynamics and somebody that's constantly releasing something versus somebody that doesn't release that often, and the mindset that's involved, and also the cross-functional teams. What does that actually look like?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's one of the coolest, the most exciting environment I've worked in probably in my career. Is we have small teams. I think I have 6 or 7 small teams that are sort of continuously launching to production, but they're also continuously discovering too. So they're constantly talking to customers. They're looking for trends within their qualitative discovery, but they're also increasingly looking at data to reveal that voice of the customer too, as people use Pluralsight in different ways. But the teams have a product person, a designer. There's usually 3 or 4 software engineers, or potentially a machine learning engineer or a data scientist. Often with my teams, a data scientist assigned, and they'll release to production 3 or 4 times a day potentially. It depends on what they're working on at the point. It doesn't always necessarily have to be a product 3 times a day, but they'll be pushing stuff into production to then reveal later on. But they're sort of getting it ready to go. It's fascinating, and the thing is, there's no approval process from me. It's we have guardrails in place to make sure that it's not going to be anything that's detrimental to the experience, but they can autonomously move. And we put a lot of trust in our teams, to make the right decision, to make the right call, and move effectively.
Which is very empowering for employees, because they're seeing engagement, they're seeing changes kind of every day. They're kind of seeing there could be little features that are kind of increasing usage, increasing success of the test scores, for example, or completion of their courses, so they can actually see these things in real time, which is really, really engaging. And then the user always feels like some new innovations are coming through. So I'm guessing you probably have a really nice feedback loop if people are giving feedback at any moment from the customer journey.
Yeah, we're all looking at different metrics to ensure the success across the board. But yeah, as a whole, we're metric driven, trying to work out how to make our experience just be as optimal as it possibly can. And from a data science viewpoint, we're starting to form the sort of data strategy that what we're trying to optimize is time to skill acquisition. So how do we start measuring that and building that in and being able to quickly identify? And we can do that through our current data science, and Iris. Iris is sort of the AI personification throughout our experience.
So I think we kind of spoke about this off air, where I was saying to that data science at the moment is, again, one of those jobs that everyone's talking about, is recognized as one of the best jobs consistently in all the different reports. And then I'm speaking to data scientists, and they're telling me how dissatisfied they are with the role. They're a data janitor. They're working with management that just don't get them, don't understand them. They want results very quickly. They're trying to make the move from academia to industry, and the different challenges there is in terms of communication, ROI, There's so many different challenges to that. And then you kind of talk about having a really positive experience, cross-functional, managing it for certain outcomes, while also understanding you're going to fail every day. How did you go on that journey? Because it sounds like a pretty good journey for a lot of people to be at now, but for some it can be several years before they can actually feel like they've got there.
Yeah, there's a huge amount to say for the culture of Pluralsight. Like, it is not just something that we have on the wall. So when I first turned up here, it was actually the summer party, and people were just unsolicited coming up to me and talking about how important the core values of this company are, and, like, you know, being honest and open and transparent, and then creating with possibility. So we're trying to do stuff that humanity's never done before. We're trying to change the way people learn, and that gets people excited, right? So, you know, you build that sort of shared sense of mission, and we all know what we're trying to do. The mission is clear. We're democratizing technology skills. So, you know, I feel like it depends on the environment that data scientists are going into, and there's a lot of people who don't really understand AI and its limitations and how it works, from machine learning, how it works from an executive sponsor viewpoint too. So you need to sort of understand, you know, the path that the leadership's come from, and have they really understood it, or are they just doing it because, hey, somebody told them that they need to do AI to look innovative? And then B, in those areas, that's when you get a lot of dissatisfaction with various data science environments.
Yeah, so that kind of starts with the candidate going in for the job interview or job, and just asking about the mission, the culture, the executive journey to actually using AI, and why they actually want to do it. We talked earlier about actually trying to find a problem rather than actually going in with a specific idea and a plan to do that as well. How hard was it to look at what you're doing day to day and think about innovative ways where you can actually apply AI to, you know, genuinely give a better customer experience, either internally looking at kind of key metrics and externally looking at the experience of the user to learn faster, more exciting, more enjoyable journey?
Yeah, so I think at Pluralsight, given the way what we do and the way we drive, my biggest task here is working out which one of the very many worthy projects should we work on, and how do we do that in an optimal and sequential way that makes sense. Like, how do we grow quickly, because we have so much opportunity in the AI space or the machine learning data science space. We have plenty of opportunity in all different aspects in Pluralsight at the moment, which is great. But it's about the setup of the entire, you know, what the product is meant to do, and this product has a whole bunch of matching elements to it. And when you start, really, if you want to, and this is how I broke it down for senior leaders at other places, is, are you trying to predict something, and do you have a historical data set that helps you make that prediction in a more accurate way, or you're trying to divine insight from enormous data sets, and can you use like a clustering analysis or natural language processing or something like that to be able to derive insight from enormous data sets that humans can't sort of do it otherwise. So the answer to that for Pluralsight is yes, on both sides. There's definitely a prediction element, and there's definitely sort of a deriving data insight and listening to that voice of the customer so that we can build a better experience again.
Do you see many changes in the customer journey now in the next 3 to, I don't know, I was going to say 3 to 5 years, maybe a year to 3 years down the line, in terms of how we're going to be kind of engaging in content, and how we're actually going to kind of continue to learn? Because the thing about innovation in tech is it's just moving so quick that if you don't stay ahead of it, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be increasingly in demand, and it's sort of the pace of languages that come on the market at any one point. Some from a technical viewpoint, you know, like 20 years ago, there was sort of only a handful of different coding languages, but, you know, new technologies and new methodologies come out every day. So that pace of change is increasing. So how do you keep up with that? You need to have that sort of technology learning platform that can do that. Now, what people are looking to from us in many ways is guidance on, what should I learn? You know, like what should I learn today in order to stay ahead of where the industry is? We have a technology radar that is helping to identify trends within certain different practices or coding languages to help with that decision. But as we see certain trends arise, it's probably going to be up to us to be able to predict and promote those learning opportunities, learning journeys to learners throughout the industry, in order to make sure that they are ahead of the game rather than sort of playing catch up, which I think has given our data sets and what we've been doing for the last, since our history of starting Pluralsight, is an enormous potential for us to be able to, you just log into Pluralsight. Hey, here's where you were yesterday, but also here's where you can be, 3 months down the line. Like how does that learning journey map out?
Yeah, and people want to know about that learning journey, because then actually it feels like they're going on a course that's going to actually give them or keep them ahead of the game, rather than actually doing something that's going to be finished or old. And that's one of the challenges by doing a kind of a 4-year course, is by the second or third year, the first 2 years are redundant, right? So it's a real challenge, to say the least. You're listening to AI Mentors. My name is Mark Kelly, and we're speaking to James Aylward. James is the SVP Head of Data Product at Pluralsight. James, just my final question. Kelly, what advice would you offer to companies trying to integrate AI into product development, and where they want to do it, but they don't necessarily know the journey to go on?
I think there's a recognition when you start out that it will be a little bumpy at points, and I think having that maturity is crucial to begin with, right? So that's the start. Then you've got to recognize that if you're a company that's used to building your own products or integrating off-the-shelf products, that this will be different. Like data science, and particularly the first attempt at data science, it's a lot of groundwork you've got to lay down. You've got to work out a whole bunch of different tech stacks that you're probably not used to, and then if you are successful, how do you bring those models into production? Because we're seeing a lot of that too, where we can successfully build models, but putting them in production and having somebody to look after the care and feeding of those algorithms in production and over time is something that companies who've never done it before are not used to. I would strongly recommend that people work out the potential ROI. So if your AI or machine learning project is going to change your industry or substantially change the user experience, it's probably worth doing. But if it's only going to be very incremental, you might want to think again about it.
Yeah. Because there's that unknown element, right? And people have to understand there's that unknown element, because compared to like your regular Scrum engineering cycle, those things are mature. So this is the unknown element, and you need to be aware of that on that journey starting out.
But I think this is actually a really fascinating product development philosophy debate. Is how do you do this? How do you integrate data science in a meaningful and effective way into teams that are used to running very quickly in small teams with high certainty of technological feasibility. And the way I've seen it work effectively is the data science team is all in there. They understand the context. They're in the upfront. They talk to customers. They understand the business challenge that's required. But then they go away and there's sort of a R&D stream, if you will. So they're working out the data sets, they're looking at data, they're building out a testing hypothesis the team has. And then they come back and say, hey, look, what we thought we could do, we actually can't do that. But here are 4 or 5 other things that we can do that we didn't even know we could until we opened that data set.
Yeah.
And then it's up to the product manager and the designers and all the rest of it to take advantage of that opportunity and see whether, oh, wow, look at that new superpower we have over there. Do people want that? Is that something that's desirable?
It's always a really nice experience when you go on journey to one end, work out that it's useless, but then you actually figure out you found out the real problem, which is so much better.
It's like, just start, like get something, go prototype, because you're never gonna learn quicker than when you stick that first prototype in front of the customers.
Yeah.
A little embarrassed by it.
Yeah. It's kind of like that Vistaprint example again. It's like you were thinking you're doing a good job, but until customers are giving you the feedback and actually saying, "Geez, this isn't what we want. We more like this." It's just a wide, eye-opening experience that everyone just benefits from. Just spending that time and figuring that out. James, thank you very much for your time today.
No worries. It's been great.
Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups, Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.